I've been a part of a lot of groups in my lifetime. I've been a part of Little League teams. I was in band, and I've been a part of study groups, which are very exciting. And now I work on a staff at a church, and that's just a team of people all working together to try to get something done. But there's one kind of group that I have never, ever been a part of. And that's because every single time I tried to join a sports team that required a tryout, I got cut. In my lifetime, I have never made a single sports team that required a tryout, which is why I played Little League, because in Little League, they can't keep you from playing. The worst they can do is tell you that you can only play 2 innings and bat once, because those are the rules. And so that's what I did. And so every single time I've tried out for a team, I've been cut, which should make you feel sad for me. Thank you. I appreciate that. The thing was, I wasn't terrible at sports. I was never terrible at sports. I was always almost good enough to make the team, which in a lot of ways is even more heartbreaking than just being awful, because that meant that every time I got cut, the coach wanted to sit me down and have this really meaningful talk with me. Like, Aaron, I just wanted to let you know that I can only put 15 people on this basketball team. If I could put 16 people on this basketball team, you would be on it. And that helps me. How, coach? And then they would always say, you were so close, and if you just work really hard between this year and next year, you'll have a really good opportunity to make this team. But what I found out the basketball coach meant by that was, if you grow about 4 or 6 inches over the course of next year, you'll have a really good chance to make this team. And so every time I got cut from a team, when I was in the 10th grade, I got cut from the bowling team. And the way that bowling tryouts worked, bowling tryouts are actually really ingenious, because they are really, really straightforward. You go and you bowl. And the best scores, the best 5 scores, got to be on the bowling team. And I came in 6th place. I bowled a .499 over the course of 3 games. And the kid that came in 5th place, the kid that got on the team, bowled a .502. So I was 3 pins away from making the team. And the bowling coach comes up to me and says, Aaron, you were so close this year. And if you work really hard between this year and next year, you'll have a great chance to make the bowling team. But what he didn't tell me was that there wasn't going to be a bowling team next year, which was kind of misleading. I never got too upset when I got cut from the basketball team. I didn't get too upset when I got cut from the bowling team. I got really upset when I got cut from the baseball team, because baseball was supposed to be my sport. Baseball, I thought, was the sport that I was good at. I thought baseball was the sport that I was supposed to be great at. And I went to tryouts, and I felt like I did pretty well. And after tryouts, the coach he had to cut 10 guys. He cut 8 of them and said, go home. And then he kept me and this other kid. And he gave us the same speech. I can only put 25 guys on this baseball team. If I could put 27 guys on this baseball team, you would both be on the team. And I wanted to be like, what if it was 26? Would it be me or him? Me, probably. And so this other kid is like, he's dejected, and he gets up and leaves because he lived real close to school, and he walked home. I still had to wait for my dad to come, so I'm sitting in the locker room, and I'm crying. This is the only time I ever cried at school, because this was devastating to me. Baseball was supposed to be my thing, so I'm sitting there, just sitting on the bench, crying for an hour, and I don't want anyone to know I'm crying, so I put on sunglasses. I'm indoors wearing sunglasses so that no one knows I'm crying, and to give you an idea of how that looks, it's like this. And so pretty much everyone's gone, and the coach comes out and he says, Aaron, can you come talk to me for a minute? And I'm thinking, this guy cares about me. Or he really just wants me to leave so he can go home. But either way, I go into his office and I talk to him, and he says, Aaron, you really wanted to play baseball this year, didn't you? And I think, is he putting me on the team out of pity? I mean, that's not what I was going for, but believe me, I would have taken it. And he says, Aaron, why do you want to play baseball so bad? And it's at this moment that every single problem I have had in my life from birth until this moment in 7th grade comes out. And I start telling him about how I'm not cool and no one likes me and I always get picked on all the time and kids pick on me and they don't like to hang out with me and I don't get invited to parties because I'm not cool like the kids who made the baseball team. And I was just really thinking that if I could make the baseball team, coach, if I could just be with those guys, if I could be on the same team as them, they would think I was cool and they would like me. I said, stop, Aaron. What? Here's the problem with what you just said, Aaron. I've got 25 guys practicing right now who are here because they want to help this team win baseball games. And I can't put together a team that has 24 people who want to win baseball games and one guy who really wants other people to like him. Because we will not be successful unless everyone has the same goal, and your goal is not the same as everybody else's. I wish I could tell you that I thought of that all the time and it always helped me in rough times, but the truth is it was a pretty traumatic experience, and I kind of forgot about it until this week. I pushed it out of my mind. And so I'm thinking about this thing that the coach said to me when he had to cut me, and it still hurts, to be perfectly honest with you. I still get upset about it because I love baseball, and I thought that was going to be the greatest time of my life, and it turned out to be probably one of the worst days of my life. And so thinking back to one of the worst days of my life, I'm thinking of the coach saying, everyone has to have the same goal, and you don't have the goal. And that's why you're not on the team. I mean, we had a lot of things in common. We were all in the 7th grade. We all went to the same school. We all had the same teachers. We all liked baseball. We all ate the exact same thing for lunch every single day. That wasn't good enough. The only thing that really mattered was that we have one thing in common, and that was that we all wanted to win baseball games. And honestly, that's not what I was in it for. And that's why I didn't get to be a part of the team. I'm thinking of last year's confirmation class when they decided they were going to raise money to build a well in Africa. And the confirmation class are more different from one another than my baseball team was. We've got 3 or 4 different schools represented in confirmation last year. We've got athletes, we've got musicians, we've got artists, we've got people that are all over the place. Don't really seem to have very much in common, but for this time when they decided they were going to raise money, they had the most important thing in common, and that was that they all wanted to help people. They rallied around it, they raised all this money, and today there's a well in Africa that wouldn't have been there if they hadn't found that one thing in common. This is the prayer that I've been praying for you this week. It's from Romans 15:5, and it says, "May the God who gives endurance and encouragement give you a spirit of unity among yourselves as you follow Christ Jesus." And unity does not mean that you are going to be made alike. You're not all going to dress alike and dye your hair to match and do everything in common and enjoy the same TV shows and the same sports. It just means that all those things that make you different, you're going to put aside to focus on the couple of things that are really, really important. And today in your small groups, you're going to have an opportunity to decide for yourselves what those most important things are going to be. When I was in high school, I found something that I was actually good at, and it was not sports, and it was not bowling, and it was not baseball or basketball. I was a trumpet player. I think I told you earlier I was in the band. I played the trumpet. And my sophomore year of high school, I was the second trumpet, which meant that I was the second best trumpet player in the high school. And that was probably right, but I was not anywhere close to the kid who was first trumpet. He was miles ahead of me. He was way ahead of me. And to give you some perspective, this is how trumpet players compare themselves to one another. Basketball players like to see who can jump the highest, who can dunk on who. Football players like to knock each other over. And this other guy who played the trumpet, he would come in and say, "I can hit a high C." And I would say, "I can hit a high..." I can't hit that note. This is all I can do. He had this note. I had this note. And that was all it took. I mean, he was better than me in a lot of other ways, but the only thing that really mattered to me was that he could hit a higher note than me, which is the same as a basketball player saying he can jump higher than me, or so-and-so can serve faster than me. This was all that mattered, and I wasn't anywhere close to this guy. But he had one tragic flaw. And that was, he wanted everyone to know exactly how good he was. That meant that if we were playing a soft part, if the trumpets were not being featured for a part of the song, and we were supposed to play something like, da 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 da, he would play, every single time. There would be these notes. It would say P or PP or PPP, and that's a PP joke. But this basically meant, play quiet. And it was like he did not recognize the letter P. It was like his alphabet skipped from O to Q, and it never had P in it because he just completely ignored this. Played as loud as he could, no matter the circumstance. Played very well, loudly, by the way. Beautiful notes. Incredibly loud. And it ruined stuff because he wasn't always supposed to do that. But he wanted to make sure that everyone knew how good he was. I remember the band teacher called us into his office one day, and I thought, oh, what's going on? He said, I've decided that Aaron is going to be first trumpet. And I'm thinking, oh man, this kid's going to beat me up. Trumpet fight. I don't know if you've ever been to a trumpet fight before. These things can get nuts. And so I'm like scared, and this guy is angry, and he's like, why? Why? I am so much better than him. And I'm like, yeah, why? Because he really is so much better than me. And he's bigger than me. And he's older than me, and he's got scarier friends. So why? And the band teacher says, kid, you're great. You're a great player. But every time we play a song, you try to show everyone how great you are. And I feel like Aaron tries to make the song sound the way the song's supposed to be. And if a band's going to work, then everyone has to make the song sound the way the song's supposed to sound, and not the way that you think you're supposed to sound. Now this kid is second trumpet, even though he is way better than me, and now he gets a complex. Like, you thought he played loud before. He wants everyone, and I mean like people who live down the street from the school to know that the kid sitting on my left is not as good as I am. He should be sitting on my right. So like, he's playing louder than we've ever heard before because he really wants people to know that he is fantastic. He's I don't know if anyone play the trumpet in here? Okay, a couple. He is literally going through songs and improvising and taking things like super loud and up an octave just to show that he can. And I know that I can't. And eventually he quit band because no matter how much he showed off, it just made the teacher angry for the obvious reasons, and he quit. And I think he was probably the best player in the whole band, and the day he quit was the best we had ever sounded. Because everyone who was left wanted the song to sound the way the song was supposed to sound. And that was our goal. This is the verse that you're going to talk about today in your refinery groups. It's from Luke 9:18-22. I want to read it to you before we go. Once when Jesus was praying in private and his disciples were with him, he asked them, "Who do the crowds say that I am?" And the disciples said, "Some groups say that you're John the Baptist. Some groups say that you're Elijah, and other groups say that you're one of the prophets who has come back to life." And Jesus said, "What about you guys? Who do you think I am?" Peter replied, "We think you're the Christ of God." That was what those disciples had in common. So I want you, when you go to your refinery groups today, to figure out what sorts of things do you have in common. But most importantly, I want you to figure out what things do you need to have in common if you're going to be an incredible group that's going to do God's work in the world. In just a minute, you're going to head out. If you don't know what classroom you're going to, they're going to be right up on the screen here, so you can go find them. Do we have any 8th graders in here right now? 8th graders? Okay, a couple of you. 8th graders, you are going to go with the 7th graders for right now, because you missed the confirmation meeting earlier. So you're going to go with the 7th graders. They're going to have fun with you, I promise, because they've got great leaders. And so you'll go to your group, so you're going to talk about what things do we have in common and what things do we need to have in common if we're going to be a great group. I want to invite you to bow your heads and pray with me.